with you and to share and to exchange knowledge and experience with you on this very interesting topic, which is the ecology through the prism of war in Ukraine. And I want to congratulate the institution, each one of you, because of your engagement in this piece. And also I would like to say God work, because it's about the calling to all of us to make peace with the planet, to make peace with the people, and to make peace with God. So that is a very, very short introduction from myself. But now I will share my screen because I've prepared some slides so that we can have a very smooth progression. So the title of my lecture is Ecological Justice Must Be a Compelling Matter to Stop War, focusing on steering human greed to ecocentrism. So the topics that I will share with you, or the roadmap of this presentation or lecture, is I will talk with you as an introduction the case of Ukraine as the green heart of Europe, which is at risk because of this war. And then at the second point, we will see together what is structural greed, because I think structural greed is one of the cause and the catalyst of war and the ecological crisis. And then third, we will talk about the need for structural greed measurement to avoid wars. And then fourth, how is the war in Ukraine affecting its ecology and the environment? And then a fifth point is to discuss about why ecological justice should be a compelling reason to stop war. And in order to do justice and work humbly with biodiversity. And in the end, as conclusions, we will talk about the WCC and Geneva Convention and the Season of Creation theme this year, which is Act and Hope with Creation. So I will start with the introduction, of course. So the war puts the green heart of Europe at risk. And this is about Ukraine. So the war in Ukraine is a war in Europe. It's a war in our continent and also the war in our planet. So Ukraine has a high diversity of habitats and species. Maybe some people don't realize it, but it is part of a broader region stretching across Central and Eastern Europe. So sometimes refers as the green heart of Europe. So why it's a green heart of Europe? Because it has rare steppe ecosystems, coastal wetlands, alpine meadows, ancient beech forests, and extensive peatlands, among others. The country shares a part of the Danube Delta, the second largest river delta of continental Europe, and the largest reed bed in the world. It includes vast pine, oak, and birch forests and peat bogs in Polysia region of northern Ukraine. The Carpathian Mountains in the western part of the country are home to ancient beech forests and alpine meadows, and we said before. Importantly, rare steppes ecosystem survive in the central and eastern part of Ukraine. So this is just an introduction to say that Ukraine biodiversity and Ukraine ecosystems are show precious in terms of ecological values. So the 35% of Europe biodiversity is endangered because of the war in Ukraine. The territory of Ukraine contains habitats that are home to 35% of European biodiversity, including 70,000 plant and animal species. Many of them are rare, relict, and endemic. So they include European bison and brown bears, lynx and wolves, as well as sturgeon and the world-threatened group of species, different species. The military intervention threatened these natural treasures. Movement of large-scale military vehicles and explosives are damaging habitats, both inside and outside protected areas. Fires sparked by attacks have already damaged over 100,000 hectares of natural ecosystems, according to satellite data from the European Forest Fire Information System. So the integrity of the world biodiversity is in jeopardy because of wars and Ukrainian wars and also wars in other countries. Just to cite and to report that according to the Ukrainian Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources, at least 900 protected areas, together covering 1.2 million hectares or 30% of our protected area in Ukraine, have been affected by shelling bombing, oil pollution, and military maneuvers. Some territories of the Emerald Network are under threat of complete destruction. According to Oleksiy Vasilyk of the Ukrainian Conservation Group, an NGO, a fifth of the country's 377 Emerald Network sites protected under the Berne Convention have been degraded by the military actions. So we can see the same in Afghanistan. For instance, 50% of forests are destroyed. In Palestine, 70,000 acres of farmland and nature reserve also destroyed. In Iraq, we have an increase of pollution about 780%, which is affecting the ecosystem globally. Now we go to the second topic of this lecture, which is our main focus, or my, I would say, share to you, is about structural greed as a catalyst of war and global crisis. We live in the epoch or era of anthropocentric greed and economy of unlimited growth. So we need to see some historical background of human greed and how human search for optimal happiness is leading to war and to the destruction of our countries and planet. So as an introduction to the concept of greed, I sit here some saying from, I would say, leaders and wise people in the past and in the Greek ancient philosophy as well. So Mahatma Gandhi said once very well, the world has enough for everyone's needs, but not everyone's greed. And in ancient Greek philosophical terms, there are many lessons which refer to the greed and the necessity of its measurement to preserve human happiness and to avoid mass destruction. So Plato, in the 4th century before Christ, he said There are, of course, natural and necessary desires to get more, but greed, by definition, is an excessive form of desire which can destroy us. And also, Lord Jesus Christ warned us, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in abundance of possessions. The concept of greed and greed line is maybe new for some, maybe already well known for some of you. But here I want to share that the concept of greed and grid line was taken from the cup of justice concept, which was invented centuries ago by an ancient Greek scientist and philosopher Pythagoras. So he used this cup, which is called greedy cup, and he tried to convince people not to be greedy. So the message that this cup, greedy cup, conveys is, we say, as crystal clear as is the water that one can drink from the cup. So he said, you might drink a little bit more if you like from this cup. You may share with others and satisfy your needs, but do not wish to fill the cup unto the rim or a grid line in order to drink more than the others, because then you will lose it all. So there is a link to the YouTube here channel. You can, I will share with you the presentation if you want, and then you can have a better look on how this greedy cup work. But now I will pass on to the next topic, which is a theological description of greed. So some of you might know the former General Secretary of the World Council of Churches, named Reverend Conrad Reiser. He has studied the concept of greed theologically and also practically, and I got this blessed opportunity to work with him and also to deepen the understanding of the concept of greed. So he said, human greed is a desire to have more than one's legitimate share of material goods and power, and also psychological and mental power. So in contrast to poverty, which deals with needs that can be objectively defined and even quantified, greed is about desires which are difficult to contain and involve an emotional energy that seeks to transgress. So a secular description of human greed. There are many descriptions of human greed according to subject: individual, institutional, national, corporal, and global. We can say that one of the hallmarks of human behavior is greed. And some of us who know Greek, in Greek, the word greedy is aplistos. So aplistos is derived from the privative a, and plistos, which means complete or full, or pliros in Greek. Therefore, greed is the insatiable desire to have more and more materials and power until it will be full, but it will never be full. So the psychology of human greed, the key to the psychology of the greedy human is survival anxiety by the burden of death, or lack of faith for tomorrow's stability. It is a reaction to normal manifested by the change of hormones and psychology. So greed is a natural process of a desired reaction, important in evolution, and a psychology of a greedy should ever be seen from the perspective of deep inner psychology, but reaches genes or the self-interest. Now, the description of the type of greed according to objects. The triune God has created human species in their likeness. According to Genesis chapter 1 and verse 26, human nature is threefold: mental, material, and spiritual. Therefore, there would be three types of human greed according to the object: mental greed, material greed, and spiritual greed. Mental greed is the desire for more knowledge to the benefits of humankind. Material greed is the desire for more resources to nurture human body. And spiritual greed is the desire for more ethical wisdom and spirituality to keep harmony and happiness for all creation. Here are some leaders' opinion on the threats from human greed. You may know the famed theoretical physicist Stephen Hawking. He said once, humans have not become less greedy or less stupid as we shared towards the devastation of our planet. And that was in 2016. We as human beings are in danger of destroying ourselves by our greed and stupidity. His All Holiness Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew I also said, harming the environment from greed is a sin and is destroying God's creation. The World Council of Churches General Secretary, the new one, Reverend Dr. Jerry Pillay, when sharing prayers and reading during the season of creation in 2023, he said, because of greed, we have uprooted your tree of life and sold this as logs, praying to God. Creation is not for sale. And Dr. Olav Fixe said few years ago, but we have to look and to search for the limit of greed or limit of wealth. So we are talking all about these concepts and theological reflection on greed. Because wars are a result of greed, and to avoid wars, we think that we have to control structural greed and to measure structural greed, because in today's complex economy, where people often fail to recognize the structural connection between their desire to improve their living standard and the destructive effects suffered by others. And here it comes more clearly when we talk about wars. It is about the desire of some leaders or countries to improve their living standards or their greed and ignoring the destructive effects to the others or to the neighboring countries like Ukraine. So Christian churches and ecumenical organizations have the task of making visible and lifting up the voices of the marginalized human and non-human part of creations, especially the victims of greed and victims of war. So at the WCC, we tried to content and to control or to measure the structural greed using conventional indicators or scientific and social indicators that are all used by the scholars and the scientists in all over the world. So the WCC Ecological and Economic Justice Group began to explore the possibility of identifying multi-dimensional indicators of greed at the structural level, which would be further developed into a structural greed index. The indicators could have as its basis people's economic, social, and cultural rights enshrined in the United Nations Human Rights Conventions, which essentially define the protective limits for maintaining life and promoting human development. So aside from raising awareness, greed indicators are envisioned to lead to the development of policies and targets to promote an economy of life and also to promote peace. So almost 2 decades ago, I was involved also in the combining the study of sustainable development or sustainability and evaluating strategies for sustainable development using theological and also ecological reasoning in order exactly to optimize the average, as we say, or the moderation for peace target and for sustainable development target. So from our studies, we recognize that the overall sustainability or the overall peace should combine the ecological sustainability and human sustainability. So in ecological sustainability, we have to take into consideration the sustainability of the air ecosystem, of the land ecosystem, the water ecosystem, and the biodiversity ecosystems. The same equally weights the human sustainability have to be measured and assessed by its policy system, its welfare or economic system, its health and knowledge or technology sustainability. This is in accordance to the biblical approach of sustainable development and also by extension the effects of war. As we can see in the theology of creation, in the beginning, God created first the water, and then the land, and then plants, and then the air or the stars and moons and so on, and then the animals, sustainability, before, in the end, the human creation. So war is a sustainability issue and very deep ecological issue. War causes many different environmental issues in both living and non-living parts of the ecosystem. Living parts involve, as we have seen clearly in the picture here, plants, animals, and also microorganisms, invisible and visible, whereas the non-living parts include the soil, water, and air. So the damage that a war can do to the local ecosystem is also extending to the other regions and to the global planetary ecosystem. So war and grid line are matters of sustainability. A sustainable society is by definition an economy where grid lines and poverty lines are carefully respected. War is happening when grid lines are overpassed and fail to be respected. So we can see here clearly the link between war and grid line. However, while the poverty line is drawn at the point of personal consumption, allowing for the satisfaction of basic needs, so it's easy to understand when the poverty line is attained or is at hand, but the grid line could not be so easily understood. The grid line could be drawn at the highest point of personal satisfaction, which can be obtained, but without negatively affecting the welfare of society and the integrity of all creation. This is just a very quick scientific model to measure the grid line using these indicators. And you can have more details on this methodology in some publications that I have already published in some books and some articles. But now we pass on the fourth topic of our lecture here. And we will see how the war in Ukraine affects the ecology and the environment locally and globally. I just want to repeat some statistics that I assume all of us know, but it is very important to fill and to share and to repeat all these destructive effects of war in Ukraine and elsewhere. So more than 12,000 square kilometers of Ukraine's nature reserves have become a war zone. Populations of rare, endemic, and migrant species suffered great losses. Birds were forced to abandon their nests and change their usual migration routes. So the efforts of decades-long conservation projects were ruined or in degradations. The need to examine ecology through the prism of war is, I would say, an universal value that we should share among the humanity. Science demonstrates that human being is living with a planetary deficit of about 1.7 planets, which means that humanity is using nature 1.7 times faster than our planet's biocapacity can regenerate. So we are already living in depth on ecological resources. So war is coming and aggraving this situation. War is worsening the human-driven ecological crisis by causing increased CO2 emissions, destroying and polluting lands, air, water, and accelerating biodiversity loss. When I say biodiversity loss, I refer to human and non-human lives. So, still about the effects of Ukraine's war on climate. During the first 7 months of the war, the fighting releases some 100 million tons of carbon into the atmosphere, as the statistics and the reports from different scientific magazines and studies said. So as well as the sabotage to the two Nord Stream pipelines in September 2022, which led to the biggest ever point source release of methane, also a potent warming gas. And that is also a big effects of the war to the environment. Many countries with large militaries publish nothing on how much pollution is caused by war. And the best estimate we have is that militaries are responsible for 5.5% of global greenhouse gas emissions. How is the war in Ukraine affecting wildlife? It is a very, very sad story. From eagles to bisons, these animals' populations are facing grave threats due to Russia's hostilities. So I looked for some resources on the internet and also in different books, and I'm very, very sad to see some pictures and also the effects of war in Ukraine to the wildlife. Ukraine has many rare steppe species whose habitats are small and concentrated mainly in the southeastern part of Ukraine, and where the most intense hostilities are taking place. That was a report from March 20 this year. And how much did the Ukraine war cost ecologically or globally? So the war is affecting human health and also nature's health through air pollution, as we say, water pollution, soil contamination, and the different psychologically and social also effects of war, like the lack of peace, lack of food, and lack of sanitations, and many other kind of diseases related to the effects of war. So according to Zagroza, as of 18 July 2023, there have been almost 2,450 reports of military actions with direct environmental effects. Estimates based on Ukraine's environmental inspections show that Russia's invasion has inflicted roughly 52.4 billion in environmental damage as up to July 2023. So how to restore ecology after war by managing greed toward ecocentrism? Here is like a picture and scheme to relate that the balanced greed and just satisfaction of all biodiversity needs is the goal of peace building and the goal of managing greed toward ecocentrism. So we have to foster and to strive for an equal way to satisfy spiritual greed, mental greed, material or ecological greed. And maybe just to explain more about what I mean by ecocentrism. So we can have three different kinds of, I would say, a psychology of greed, or the goal of one's or society's greediness. So there can be a grid with biocentric goals. So people having grid for a common home for all biodiversities. And that is related to the physical grid. And we can say about anthropocentric grid when we think of the common home for all humankind only. And we refer to ecocentric grid when we are referring to the common divine home or oikos for all creation, so including biocentric and anthropocentric grid. Now, as a way to steer a grid toward ecocentrism, I suggest, and our study suggests, that we should use different kind of grid indicators. So I present here a table with sets of grid indicators using the current paradigm, which is I shared with you before about anthropocentric grid indicators, and some suggested shift paradigm that I would say ecocentric grid indicators. So ecologically, we used to say and to measure our ecological footprint as our grid indicator. We have to be more focused and change this indicator into a set of 4 ecocentric grid indicators. First, we should focus on the percentage of land protected area, the percentage of biodiversity loss, specifically, percentage of polluted water, and the climate change effects as the measure of temperature change. Also, as financial grid indicators, we used to measure our grid by the financial assets and financial interest rate. But we have to be more ecocentric focused and use the indicators of financial investments to ecological restoration and protection, or use the indicators of agricultural productivity rate, like the use of fertilizer, insecticide, and pesticides. As economic grid indicators, we have been used the annual income and household debt as grid indicators. Now we have to be more focused on annual income from natural resources management and also biocapacity depths or the biodiversity gap due to biodiversity loss as measure of our depth. And for the social grid indicators, instead of using living standards indicators, social class, and schooling years, we are used to use natural environmental quality as our indicators for living standards, the natural resource availability as water and trees and food and biodiversity availability, and be more specific on using indicators for environmental and ethical education's schooling years. And last, about the spiritual and political grid indicators, instead of just use global, national, or personal morality, or national and personal freedom, we should use the ecological law endorsement, like the ratification of Ecology law or Paris Agreement for climate, or our engagement in different ecological movements, and also the use of ratifications of or endorsement of environmental advocacies, and also the protestations frequency of our society or of ourselves. So that was a paradigm shift of human greed indicators to avoid war and to change the values that we are used to live in and to shape our behavior. So the last topic is why ecological justice should be a compelling reason to stop war. And our main objective is to do justice and walk humbly with nature or with biodiversity, as it is clearly advised through the Holy Scriptures and the theological and ethical values. So war destructive effects are usually evaluated through human casualties only, but human being is one species among trillions of species. The human body is scientifically an ecosystem of trillions of microorganisms living inside him. And in any human body, there are around 30 trillion human cells. But our microbiome is an estimated of 39 trillion microbial cells, including bacteria, viruses, and fungi that lives on and in us. This is to say that if we consider the biodiversity as a whole, human species is just a tiny species or parts of biodiversity species. So just to report here that US officials in August put the number of Ukrainian soldiers killed at 70,000 and as many as 120,000 injured. And the BBC Russians, in a joint project with the Media Zona website, has established the names of more than 45,000 Russians service people who had died. But it estimates the total number to be greater than that. So it's a political, I would say, data, but just to reflect that biodiversity is dying because of war, and not only human biodiversity, but also, and most importantly, the rest of non-human biodiversity. Biodiversity is our neighbor, and we should love them as ourselves. We should pray for them and work for their protection and advocate for their peace with constant respect so that justice and peace are all among them. So, for instance, how should we treat nature and biodiversity? Maybe some of you have heard about the rights of rivers. For instance, to the natural river and the biodiversity linked to it, we should grant the fundamental 7 rights to river. These rights could be the following according to the Rights of River International Movement. First, the right to flow. Second, the right to perform essential functions within its ecosystems. Third, the right to be free from pollution. Fourth, the right to feed and to be fed. by sustainable aquifers. 5th, the right to native biodiversity. 6th, the right to regeneration and restoration. And 7th, the right to maintain lateral and longitudinal connectivities. And war is preventing rivers to have all these rights. This is just an example, but we should have in mind that all parts of the nature should have full rights, like rivers. So the earth, from our belief, is a planetary boat toward common deification. The earth is our common boat where human and non-human living being while traveling to the eternity of perfection or deification with God. So in a complex interdependency that God, people, and creation are called, we are, as people, we are called to repent and sustain the earth by actions and prayers. So this is a call to join the season of creation that I would recommend you to get engaged and to visit the website. And it could also help us to stop war and to help and to pray for the victims of war. So biodiversity extinction and climate change could be irreversible.
Yeah, Professor, I propose you to come to the conclusions in order to have this 10, 15 minutes.
To make it, okay, thank you. So I would go on a little bit to the conclusion. So as a conclusion, we need, I say here, we need the 5th Geneva Convention. So we need new sets of international laws to protect the lives of people and the environment. Some of you would know the 4th Geneva Convention, which is intended to protect the civilian lives, but we need also, and there is now a movement which support that, we need the 5th Geneva Convention to protect also the environment in time of war. And just to remind that the wrong and genuine sustainability should be put clearly and reminded to every person and every political leaders. The genuine sustainability is about ecocentric greed and also about respecting not to violate the grid line, such the case of war. And to close, we have to hope and act with creation so as to restore our nature from the destruction of war, and also to hope for the peace, stability in Ukraine and also in different countries. So we just have to repeat and to believe that ecological justice must be a compelling factor to stop war and to resolve sustainable issues. So the WCC has published some statements on biodiversity recently and climate, and supports the ecocide law and we call Zychaeus tax in order exactly to stop greed and to stop such kind of war. So thank you, and sorry for the long presentation. Now we have time, and I will stop the sharing of my screen.